Welcome to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we're talking with Richard Williams about the WA Military Digital Library. Richard was seconded to the WA Military Digital Library by the founders that he knows very well, and he has become the digitisation manager there at the Western Australian Military Digital Library. Welcome to Forest.chat, Richard.
Hello, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show, Richard. Richard, before meeting you, I had absolutely no concept of the Western Australian Military Digital Library. What on earth is the Western Australian Military Digital Library?
Well, what we actually are is a collection of military papers, treasures and keepsakes, family stories that have been donated over many years to the Fremantle Army Museum. And what happened was that my wife and her friend visited the Army Museum and got talking to the curator there, who's in charge of all these donated articles. And when they were shown the compactuses full of boxes, which in turn in each box had an envelope, like an A3 size envelope, full of letters and diaries and photos, all of World War One, World War Two veterans that had been donated to them, and they were just sitting around collecting dust. And when they had a look in their first box and saw diaries of a guy, say, who was in 4 years in a prisoner of war camp in Germany, and the letters he wrote home and that sort of thing, they decided that it all needed to see the light of day somehow. And then between them, they decided, oh, I've got a great idea. Let's digitize them all and put them on a website. So that's basically how it started.
So that's where the WA Military Digital Library came from, like the genesis story, really.
Yes.
So you talk
Yep.
about the Fremantle Military Museum?
Army Museum, yeah.
Army Museum, okay.
Yeah. So they, since about 1982, I think, they've been having these things donated to them. And what it usually is, it's someone's mother and father have died, or grandfather's died, and they found, when they're cleaning out the house, an envelope, a box, a suitcase with all the stuff in, and they don't know what to do with it. And it started off with people just saying, look, we know what to do with this, do you want it? And they said, yeah, for sure, we'll take it, and started collecting it. So they've been doing it for all these years, and there's been some of them have got very little stuff in it that's very interesting, and then you get the odd one that's just got the best treasures sort of thing, with the best diaries, the best letters, or things like that. So
Yeah, that would be the same with anywhere where you're getting donations from a period of time, that there are people who would have been better writers or just collected more interesting stuff. So you also mentioned a compactus. Now, I've had a life in the government, so I know what that is. What's a compactus?
well, it's like I suppose it's a big group of boxes that are maybe 2.5 meters square. They've got shelves in, and they slide along a base. So they've got two or three of these, and each one can hold, I don't know. Well, in total, might be 460 boxes of different sizes in these two compactuses, or maybe even more. And that's how they're stored. So they're collected. Sometimes, like, they'll usually, when they go into our museum, they'll go through them, they'll have a look, they'll write down the donator's information on that, put it in the envelope and stick it in the cupboard, because they've got nothing to do with it, sort of thing. And then when we turned up, we started at box number 1, and had in the first envelope had PD number 1 on it, which is personal document file, and I've just finished number 1970, I think, of these personal document files. So we've worked our way through over 8 years, and that's actually, except for new ones that come in, that was the end of them.
So they had just shy of 2,000 of those records when you started the project, and you've basically got to the end of that group. Is that how it is?
Yeah, that's it. So we've basically exhausted the as we call them, the PD files. But then saying that, just last week they got another couple of donations in. So we've got those. I've just finished digitizing those yesterday, type thing, and that was two. One was made up of four photo albums, and he was from the first Australian paratroop unit, and the second was from a man from from Bunbury, who was a lawyer, and he joined the army and was sent to Singapore, I think it is, to do the war crime trials. So in this file we've got from him, it's got photos of Japanese soldiers that were being tried, and they're standing there with like chalkboards on their chest with their name and a number on them, and on the back it's got their name and what their crime was, whether it was, no, what their sentence was, whether it was hanging, 10 years in prison, 3 years in prison. And then also in the envelope, in the file, it's got transcriptions from the court proceedings, letters from his parents and wives, like character references, and all these sorts of things, and also Australian soldiers' statements of the brutal things that happened, that these guards and that committed. So that was the one I've just finished scanning, and it's just an amazing collection.
That's incredible. There's all sorts of things happen in war. It's not where you want to actually be, I think. And there's all the elements of it, and all of these have been put into this series of PD,
Yes.
personal
So
donations.
so far, because we do other things, we have other things to scan as well. Like there's big books of daily orders from different battalions, and they're like a photocopied, or I guess, remember the Gestetners when you wind them through the thing with the blue, Yep.
Blue that gets everywhere and
Yeah, that's right. So,
has that very distinctive smell.
yes. So there's orders from, like, printed on paper that have been stuck in these big books, and we've gone through and done all those, and all sorts of things, different things that have been donated to the Army Museum over time. So we've done those. Plus, besides doing just work for the Army Museum, we also do what we call community donations, and we give them a CD number, and we have things like, we take our website on the road, and we've got our tables set up with our banners and our tablecloths advertising ourselves, and we do different shows, and we talk to people, and we've got a touch screen. People can come and see our website and all that sort of thing. And from doing these sort of shows, we get talking to people who have got memorabilia at home that was their grandfathers or their great uncles or someone who served. And sometimes if we're doing a 2-day event, like when we go to York for the Historical Festival, we'll talk to them on Saturday, Sunday. They would bring them in, and I would scan them for them there and then we put them on the website. Or other ones, like we've been to people's houses to scan stuff in, or they'll bring stuff here, leave it with me for a couple of days, and we'll scan it in and then put it up on the website. So we're doing community donations as well. And I think for them, we're up to about 470 or something of those sort of things we've done, which is quite good. It's great to see what people got stashed away in their cupboards.
Yeah, I'm sure. What are amongst the smallest things that you've had to digitize?
As in items themselves.
Yeah, physical size of the items.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, stamps, I suppose. Look, we get, because there's such a broad array of things in the envelopes, as I say, from diaries to letters home to loose little things like badges and stamps and even coins sometimes, depending on what there is. Like even money from when they were in Japan after the war, when they had that in between, when they print, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it was like Japanese currency that was used by the Australian soldiers and that sort of thing. We've got those sort of notes on our website, and But yeah, all sorts of things. One of the most interesting things, diaries are brilliant to subscribe, and I always find myself going down a rabbit hole. I'll start subscribing and I'll find an interesting bit on it, and I'll start reading. And next minute I'm reading when I should be, digitising. But
It's a
I
very
did,
distracting business.
yeah. Well, I've done one when I've had like one PD file, and there was a guy in a German prison war camp for 4 years, right up to when the Americans repatriated him at the end, and he kept a page of a diary just about every day. And then in the next one I did was a guy that was in a Japanese prisoner of war camp for 3 years up to the end. And the interesting thing was, in both of them, in the same year, they were talking about who won the Melbourne Cup. And it was all the news they were getting from the Red Cross and things like that. It was really quite interesting. So the similarity in their life as far as normality goes, but so different in the experiences they went through.
That's incredible, isn't it? So the news comes through no matter what.
No, that's right. Yeah, it's good.
What sort of equipment do you use to digitize?
When we first started, because like we didn't really know, although we knew the size of the project, we didn't know quite how we were going to tack and how long it would take us. We had a flatbed scanner, but a lot of things we could scan with the flatbed scanner were taking, like, it was such a slow process. So I started using my camera, my SLR camera in a overhead Lightroom type display, to just take photos of everything, which again was a lot quicker, but still took quite large images, or small, whichever I want, I suppose, images. And then the Army Museum donated to us, or gave us, this vertical Fujitsu scanner, the SV600 vertical scanner. And then basically it'll do anything up to A3 or even a little bit bigger A3. And with the software it comes with, it's a very simple process. You just have to put them on a black sheet. It'll scan and then just put that image, save that image, and you just put another one. You keep scanning as many images as you want. You can do 200 at a time, as that, before you have to stop and just process them. And also you have the ability to put 3 or 4 items on the page at once. It'll scan them and separate them. It's very clever, so that speeds up scanning and that sort of thing. And then I have another flatbed scanner with a paper feeder that was donated to me by Fujitsu after a few emails and that back and forwards telling them what we were doing about our project. And that came about because I saw on a website that a London group were traveling the world digitising watercolour paintings. And they were actually on the Fujitsu site because they were just using Fujitsu, the SV600 scanner. And I wrote to them and told them about our website. And at the time, we might have had like 20,000 images up. And I told them what we're going at. And the local Fujitsu man in Melbourne, who was actually a Japanese man, he contacted me and said, we're very interested in your website as using it to advertise the fact that our scanners are being used for this as well. Mm-hmm. And he said, is there anything I can give you, And I said, well, I could do one of these scanners. He said, no worries. He just sent it to me straight away. So that's how that came about. With the 2 scanners, anything up to A3 I can do. And most of them are just scanned in as JPEGs, because we figure that we'll put the images on our website. And if anybody, like, we had a conversation with the museum and they were asked why we weren't scanning them in as TIFFs, and save them as TIFFs. And when we explained to them that, it all comes down to space and what it is, and we got to make them so small to go on the website anyway to be usable, that the best thing for them to do is if they want that image big, is then to contact the Army Museum and go to the original file and get the original photo, and they can scan it themselves with their own equipment. So we don't scan them very big, the images. They're all like between 5 and 8 megabyte photos. Mm-hmm. We scan them in, and then after that is I use another software program, and we shrink them down to be actually less than 300 kilobytes to put on the website. So they're like 300 kilobytes in size, but they're no bigger than 12 million pixels, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So you can still click on them on an image, blow it up to a full screen, and it's really clear. So that was the best way we could find to get the most clarity in our pictures, and also keep it small enough so we don't need huge amounts of space.
The eternal juggle in the digital world. You can have everything you like, but you can't keep it
Yeah, well,
because it's too big.
this is the other thing, and because, like, as I say, I was roped into this project because it was my wife and her friend that went to the Army Museum and decided we could do this great job. So that was all good. But then she came home and told my son, well, we need a website now. And he'd never done a website before. And they did a bit of research, my wife and my son, and they decided for us the best way is to have a wiki website. So then my son had to go away and learn how to do wiki code and do the setup, to get our website the way it is now, like the layout and all that sort of thing. So that was my son getting roped into it. And then as we thought, well, we need to keep this somewhere separate, he decided to have the server at his house. So we've got the server at his house, like the stored images at our house. I do the scanning. My wife does all the putting to the website.
Yep.
So all that goes up. So she has to sort through all the images and put them in the right order and write the bit of words under each one and all that sort of thing. And so that's that. And then my daughter said, oh, what can I do? Well, I don't know. She said, well, I could do all the Facebook posts and that sort of thing. And she does a Facebook post, an Instagram post, and puts them on Pinterest, and does like virtually one every 3 days now. Just puts up different images. So it became very much a family affair without even knowing what we were getting involved in.
Yeah, it's great to be able to do that. Richard, what does it take you to be the digitisation manager at the WA Military Digital Library?
The process is the digitising. So when we go down to the Army Museum, we come back with about 5, 6, 10 boxes at a time, and anything up to 10 envelopes in. So then I go through and I try to sort them a little bit into some sort of order if I can, and then I'll just go through and I'll scan everything. So once it's scanned, I do all the cropping in the scanning program to make sure I haven't chopped any words, or it hasn't chopped words off when it's drawn the boxes around to process them. Then we save them, and then I have to go into another program and I size them all. And basically for me then, within reason, that's that process done. And I just move on and go again. So the digitising is probably, well, I think it's probably the easiest job. Just got to keep doing it, because the job that my wife has to upload everything is much more labour intense, because every time she starts a new page for someone, she's got to build the box and put the code up for that and put the names in, and the way she does it now, she's got all these bits of code saved onto templates that she can just drag in and do it like that. But it's quite a process.
I understand about the processes because I run a process behind this podcast as well about communications and whether things have been done or not done and all those sorts of things. So I can understand that you would need to run a process. But there's got to be a connection between what you do, what you hand off to her, I guess, as well.
Yeah, well, once they're in the size format, be right, we have tables we put everything onto just to track what's there. If there's nothing in there of description, in the past I've gone through and found army records and that of them to add to it a little bit. So just to try and add information to the finished product so it makes it easy to put up. So like that's sort of how the process is. And combined with this, the other thing we're doing is we're digitising audio interviews. So the Army Museum had maybe, I'm going to guess, 50 interviews they've done over the years from about 1987 or something like that. And we bought this cassette deck that will record straight to a USB. And we've been going through, because you have physically have to play all the tapes so they record. And then once they're done, I go through and I just use Word to transcribe them from words to type. And then once they're done, I move them into an audio file, and they're sort of slowly going to be put up onto the website as well. Some of the ones that I've been doing haven't got people who are on our website, and other ones have, so it's easy enough then to add them to their page. So that's another thing we've been volunteered. We were asked if we were interested in doing that, and someone had a variety of saying, yeah, of course we can do that, once we figured it out. So yeah.
So for
So
you, there's been a lot of learning going on, as
uh,
you know.
uh, at the start it was, yeah, especially trying to figure out the best way we were going to. It was easy enough to just go through and digitize them, take the photos, and then do the scanning. And it wasn't until we decided, which was probably after a good year or so, the format of the website, how the website was going to be done, and then we had to go through, and by this time I might have had like 90 or 200 PD files done, and then we had to go through and size them all and post-process them all, because then we knew what we were going to do with them, and that's the thing. So that was a big learning curve, how we were going to do it, what's some good software to use. And there were people around, luckily, we could talk to that were into this sort of thing, who were doing their own type of digital, I don't know, collections. And so that helped, yeah. At the moment, say with the website, there's probably 50,000 images on there. And I've scanned 110,000 images. I was checking the other day. So my wife's a little bit behind because it's always a slow process. And besides that, she gets sidetracked onto different projects. So that sort of thing is where we're at with the images wise. And as far as the processing goes and that, I think that's about it.
We've heard what it takes, Richard, to be the digitisation manager at the WA Military Digital Library. We'll have a break now, and after the break, we'll have a look at what it means. We've heard what it takes, Richard, to be the digitisation manager at the WA Military Digital Library. Now, let's have a look at what it means. Richard, what does it mean to you, your family, or the community that you're the digitisation manager at the WA Military Digital Library?
I think to me personally, and to my wife and everybody involved, or all the family involved, the fact that we can bring all of this information out of the cupboard and put it up for people to see and read and explore is quite an exciting thing. And it's quite rewarding in as such that we've had some occasions where we've had a little, like for one example, this is this soldier we had, and all we had was 2 bits of paper, and he was up. And what Gwyn does then, my wife, she goes onto Ancestry and has a look if anybody's got this person in their family tree. And with this man, she found that they had this one photo of him and 10 pages of a diary. And she wrote to these people and told them what we had, and said, like, we'd love his photo. Can I take a copy just to add to our website? And can I take a copy of these 10 pages of the diary to put on as well? And this man whose ancestry page it was, came back to Gwyn and said, yep, that's fine. I'd love you to have that. But also I've got more things for whatever his name was, and I can send you those as well if you'd like to add those to your page. And Gwyn said, oh, that's fantastic. We'd love to have that. Anyway, so it was like 60 or 70 images later, he'd finished with that. And then he said, oh, and by the way, that was his I forget exactly who it was. But then he had 4 other members of the same, like all brothers of the same man. So whether it was great uncles, I think it would have been by this time, who all served, and he had information on them. He said, would you like them? So that was another 4 people we got. And then it turns out that the wife of the original man, she served as well as a nurse. And then so she got put up. And so we went from like having 2 images and no photo to actually pages and pages and pages of him on the website, sort of thing. So that was a good thing And he said, well, it's great now because I've got it all, but now the whole family can see it. And he said he just told the whole family, so the whole family can go and look. And that's one good thing. It sort of puts it out there for everybody in the family to see. And we've had a major who was in Papua New Guinea right at the end of the war, and he actually got a camera off a dead Japanese soldier, and he brought it back to Australia and got the photos processed, and we've digitized those in. And my daughter was putting those up on Facebook over time because I've got no names on, just to say, do you recognize this person? And people from Japan were coming back to her and saying, have you got a name for this person? We haven't got any photos from our grandfather, and we know he died in Papua New Guinea during the war, and that's all we know, and things like that. So that was another good story type thing. And then what was another one we had when we were in York? We've inherited this, the photo of the 11th Battalion with the photograph on the pyramid during World War One. It's the 11th Battalion. Have you seen that photo?
I think I may have. That's a famous photo, isn't it? That's been shared
Yes,
around quite a lot.
that's right. Well, there was a project done by a friend of ours, and they tried to get a name to everybody on that photo, so you could identify that person on the third row in the middle is this person, and do it like that. And they got a big 3 meter by 3 meter canvas photograph done of that pyramid, and he donated it to us, and we've been using it as a backdrop when we go out on site. And this lady came and said, oh, this person here is my great great grandfather, and we know that he had medals, but nobody knows where they are. And we went and looked on our website, and we had him there, and it said that his medals were collected by her great aunt, who was still alive. She didn't tell me she had the medals, and we've talked about it heaps of times. So she was going to go straight back and talk to this lady. Show me these medals. So that was a good one too, sort of thing. So, as far as like putting things out there, we've got Army, Navy, Air Force, and the medical services and everything, as in the front page shows. But you don't have to be actually born in Western Australia to have your records on there. We have people that after the war emigrated to Australia, and we've got their records on the wall, because it's all, if you're in Western Australia, you're West Australian, so we'll put you on the website type thing. And that's the way we do it.
So in that case, someone's predecessors will have come out, probably took their records with them, and those records now in WA.
Yeah, like Greek,
Yeah.
we've got Greek, I forget who else we have, but we've got quite a few different nationalities that have been put up over the time, which is, again, quite interesting. Another good thing, what we've started doing with our website is we're sort of becoming a place for other people like ourselves that have got collections, but they're getting of the age where they've got nowhere to put them. And we've got what's called a community compilation section, which is right at the bottom. And on there, we've got, like, at the moment, we've got these three main ones, the Phil Sullivan Tent Light Horse collection. And Phil's in his 70s, and he's been doing this collection of a photo and a name for every light horseman, because the Tent Light Horse started in Guildford.
Yep.
Here, and he's been collecting names and photos for over 20 years. And if you go on and see, you'll see all the photos he's given us. And like Neville Browning, we've got the 16th AIF, All Killed in Action collection. And if you go and look at the
Is Neville Browning, is he in Eastvic Park?
Yeah, I think so. I personally don't know him. My wife knows him very well. I know of him,
Right.
and because he's written a lot of books and that sort of thing.
I think I've met him as a part of the Victoria Park Public Library.
Oh, yeah.
And they're doing some things there with recognising military personnel who died that were not normally recognised because they fell outside the strict criteria. So their names were never put onto the memorials, but they were a part of the effort, and they did die. But maybe they didn't die outside of Australia, or maybe they died in training or something like that. So their names didn't qualify to go onto those walls. So Neville's doing a project in that space, I believe.
Well, that could be the one what we've got there as well. But
Yeah.
another collection we've got on here is called the Dolly Sumner Postcard Collection, and it's 62 postcards. And what it was is Dolly during World War One was a 17-year-old young lady who mum had dining rooms, shop in Midland, and when the boys were at training at Black Boy Hill, they used to come down to the shop to see Dolly, you know, or the pretense of going to the shop to see Dolly because she was such a cute little thing. And these 60 postcards are all written from these soldiers back to her, just hello Dolly, remember me, and all this sort of thing. And it's a very good collection of postcards. You see all these young boys. It's one of the, the postcards when they had their own photo on them. It's got the photo of the man, or the boy, and all it's got, like this one here, it's got with love from Dimple, and things like this. And there's this group of four boys. They call themselves the Wild Bunch or something. They're great postcards. They're just all these young lads. Half of them don't even old enough to be shaving, and they're off fighting for their country. And it's a great collection. So basically, yeah, what's happened is from people to get into our website, and the fact that it's been going for the best part of 8 years, they've entrusted their collection to us because they've got like nowhere else to put it, knowing that it could just be put into a drawer and forgotten about, or whatever it is that when they pass or move on or get too old to do it. So we're sort of getting these collections coming in as well, which is really good. It's nice to be able to do that for these people.
Absolutely. To be able to help the efforts to save and to share the historical artifacts that you've got.
For a lot of people, it's been a lifelong project, especially like for Phil Sullivan. He's been here for so long. And even now that we're doing it, he's still once every couple of weeks bringing another photo with another name, for us to add to it and things like this. He's still finding them. He hasn't given up yet, type thing. So, yeah, it is good.
My niece's partner, I think he has a collection of Gallipoli glass plate photography, World War One, definitely. There's definitely collections all around the place.
Yes. Like I was saying, we've virtually exhausted the PD files from the Army Museum. They've still got lots of single photos that need to be digitized that have just been, I don't know, found in albums and sort of things like that. And so there's that to do. And we are doing albums as well. They got donated. Some are just like a scrapbook album. Others are like autograph albums and things like that. So they're in the process of being put up. So although we thought it might have an end, it doesn't look like it's going to have an end. Because I must admit, last year, my wife got talking to a man from the RAF up at Pierce, and he says they've got this much and probably double, he says, of stuff that needs to be digitized. So he's just waiting for us to go and knock on their door and say, look, we're bored. We're looking to do yours now. So that sort of
Here's a
thing.
different interpretation of board, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's sort of thing that you think it might be end dated, but doesn't appear to be.
You could just imagine that throughout society that there's things stashed away all over the place. A family that we knew through car rallying, the parents that we knew, they eventually passed away quite close together. But then, they had a house full of very well kept historical stuff that there was nowhere for it to go. The vast majority of it was probably lost.
Yeah, well, going back to my story about the lawyer from Melbourne, that I'm going to call it an album. It's really just like an A4 ring binder with all the photos and that in it. When the owner of that died, his wife didn't know what to do with it. So she just took it to the local police station and said, I don't know what to do with this. Do you want it? And the guy looked and said, well, what are we going to do with that? And he handed it off to another man. There's another policeman who
Yep.
handed it off to another policeman who handed it up to the policeman, and they ended up keeping it. And he was the one that took it into the Army Museum and said, look, I've got this. I want to keep it, but do you want to have a copy? And that's how it turned up. So just as simple as that, people just don't know what to do with it. And that's another thing that we have done from taking our website to the country and, doing different shows and that. We have been able to enlighten people on what they can do with these collections they don't know what to do with. So some of them
Fantastic.
have gone to the museum and that sort of thing as well. So it sort of helps them not getting lost or thrown in the big bin or something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. There are so many positive meanings to the work that Richard does as a digitisation manager at the WA Military Digital Library. We'll have a break now, and after the break, we'll have a look at how you do it. We've heard how much positive meaning there is in maintaining these historical records that Richard digitises. Now, let's have a look at how you do it. Richard, if someone had a stash of records, what should they do with it?
Well, you can contact us on our website if you go to the About Us and to contribute, and it's got the inquiries at wamdl.com.au. If you email us on that, then we'll get back to you, and we'd love to talk to you about digitising your memorabilia, we're going to call it. That's probably the best way. It can be done by us, as I say, coming to you, or if you've got a decent amount, I can bring my scanner. Otherwise, if you've got a few items, if you can scan them yourself, you can email them to us. Or if you're not too far away type thing, you can bring them to me and I can scan them and give you a digital copy and give the originals back in a couple of days. Or if it's not too many, I can do it on the day type thing. So that's how you can get your stuff on our website.
So that sounds like it's fairly easy. You could actually make the contribution yourself already digitised, or if you're able to take the photos or make the scans and send them in, that can be done. Or there's some way to catch up, and you do that through the About Us and contribute on the website. I'm seeing that contribute page on the website, and it's got things like transcribe, research, digitising, sharing your knowledge. That raises a question about how might somebody get involved with your effort if they wanted to help out.
Yeah, well, it's the same sort of thing. What we're endeavouring to do with the website, we want to make it all searchable. So to have everything searchable, we need to have a type comment under every photo, or we need to have every diary transcribed into text so we can put the text up. And it's the same as I'm saying with the audio tapes. We're making those into transcriptions, so then the type copy can go up as well. And that's the transcribing side of it. And we've got people who are doing, as I said, some are just using a transcribing software for diaries and that. They use the software to convert it to words, and then they have to go through and proofread it and take out all the double words or the asterisks and that when it can't pick that word, and you've got to listen back and read the original and then put in the proper word and that sort of thing. Then we have people we have people transcribing, we have people who are editing the transcriptions, and we are going to be looking for people to listen to the audio tapes and go through and edit the transcriptions for those as well. So if that's anything, and the biggest thing is really if you can read running writing, because back then everything was done running writing, and it's a dying art. And to find people that can actually read running writing is just so hard.
Is that right? Oh, didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I learnt both when
Yeah.
I was coming through school, so that was pretty
Well, like
normal. But
Gwyn's really good at it, and so and I'm a lot better than I was, because you just get used to the way they write. But other people just cannot read running writing. So find people that can read running writing, and especially where they used to write old-fashioned style of writing, I'm going to call it, isn't it? And to put sentences together when you're struggling to read them is a difficult thing to do. So if you're good at that, then we could do with your help at times. So, and anybody that wants to help, we can give them access to material, and basically there's no rush. We don't put pressure on anybody. Do it when you can and get it back to us and that sort of thing. So we're always looking for people like that.
I imagine there's a fair backlog of material in between having been digitised and ready to be uploaded. Would that be fair to say?
It is, yeah. I know Gwyn does her best to, if you've made the effort of doing the transcribing and that, she tries to do her best to put it up to match the diaries, because usually people are transcribing off the diary that's on the website already and that sort of thing. But also, yes, as far as backlog, I'm way in front in the scanning to what my wife is of putting them up. you know, because
And,
again, it takes.
and there's an element there of the process that's being applied. So digitising can be quite a short process in a lot of ways. But once you start going like, okay, but that now needs to have converted into text or something like that, that can be a much longer process.
Yeah, because like when we get say photo albums in, and the photo albums, the photos sometimes they're stuck in, sometimes they're put in with those corner binders, sometimes they're written on the back, and sometimes they're written on the photo album itself. So when I do that, when I'm digitizing, I'll open the page, I'll scan the whole page complete to start with, so you know which photo's got what words with it, and then I take the photos out, which is in itself is a process. You got to try and take them out without breaking off the corners, and then I check on the back for words, and I'll scan the photo face up first, so you get the photo, and then I'll turn it over and scan the words on the back, and I'll put it back in. I'll take the next one out, and I'll do a whole album like that. So then when my wife puts the photos up on the website, she's got the full page as a reference, and then she's got the photo to put up, and she's got the words that are on the back to type underneath. And to do that, you can imagine it's quite a process. That's why she's quite a way behind the number of images that I've scanned, because they're all just that is. And then also to put them in some sort of order, sometimes not just follow the album through, or if they're loose in an envelope, you've got to put them in order so they're sort of all together, like so they flow, and they just, and it makes sense when you're looking, that it's just not a thrown up mishmash of photos and papers.
Give it some logic.
Yes, it's true.
Is there anything more that you have?
Besides doing what we're doing type thing, my wife and Andrew are actually doing a project for the VDC, the Voluntary Defence Force for World War II. In Western Australia, there was more than 15,000 volunteer VDC around the state, and they're in the process of trying to find a photo for every one of those, or at least a service number and that sort of thing, and then put them into where they were serving and that on the map. So that's another project they decided in their wisdom to start. And also they're trying to find more women who serve as nurses and the VADs, as the Volunteer Army Defence, whatever they're called, I can't remember. They're doing that as well to bring the women of the war who sort of weren't recognised as much onto the website, because the curator from the Army Museum, Helen, she was in the Army, and I think she's been pushing that project a bit. So they don't really have a choice, because that's her passion. Yeah,
And a fair call, because almost all of society got involved, really.
oh, for sure, that's right. Yeah, because a lot like the nurses that went to Singapore, they just went, they just volunteered. They weren't in the army. They just went, to start with. Or the ones that went in World War One, that went to England just to work in the hospitals and that. A lot of them weren't in there. They just volunteered to do it. And they came back and they weren't recognised. It wasn't until the Second World War that they started, I think, putting them in, recognising them as army personnel.
A massive, massive effort on the behalf of a lot of people.
Yeah, this is true. And you can see, like on the if people look on the front of our website, they've got all the different broken down, like from colonial forces, which right back to the Boer War, and that's one before the Boer War, and all the way up to the Air Force and that. So we've got a bit of a spot on here for everybody. And the other really interesting thing is we tell people is we don't discriminate, and we don't sanitize what we're digitizing. A good bit of a diary we did was from a Boer War officer. He was Australian, and he wrote in his diary about the Mauser guns that the Afrikaans had, how when they used those, the hole, like the size of the hole, it blew in the back of the head of the person they shot, and they were describing it in his diary. So we didn't. You just copy it in, you transcribe it, and you put it up. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
and he wrote in about the disdain and hate for the so-called British cavalry. he said they were the slowest cavalry in the whole world type thing. This was always talking about the British soldiers in during the Boer War. To call them cavalry is an absolute joke. They're so slow, they don't get anywhere very fast. He's riding type thing, and to read things like that, it's really quite good, But it's some of the things just wouldn't be said or written nowadays type thing without being censored, I suppose. So
that stuff happened. You shouldn't be censoring it, I think. So that's a good position to take.
Yeah, that's where we are. So it's all good. Makes for fun reading at times.
I sometimes ask Richard what's next, but you've already got a few projects lined up that you've talked about.
Yeah, for me, I've still got more things, as I said, to digitize, and we've just started doing all their unnamed photos. That's going to be another page we put up on another section we put up here is the unknown soldier with all these photos with no names on the back. So that's going to be one of the next thing we do when we add to the website. So that'll be a good project in itself, I think.
Thank you very much, Richard, for being on Forest.chat.
No, thank you very much. It's been good. I don't mind talking about it on the website and that, but I must admit, because I do mainly the digitising, a lot of it that goes on, it's not till I go and check myself that I realise, oh wow, that's a good job. I'm quite impressed with that.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
A pleasure. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode we talked with Richard Williams about being the digitisation manager at the Western Australian Military Digital Library. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. When you sign up for the emails, you receive a notification of episodes as they're released. If you want to listen to the episodes, go to forest.chat/episodes. If you do something interesting or that you think other people may find interesting, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a small business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until next time, enjoy making it happen.